This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com, and this is going to be a UFO related interview. I have Samuel Chong here, who is a certified court interpreter. So he's not your typical UFO enthusiast. He's very credible. You currently reside in LA, and you are an expert on this book, the Thiaoouba Prophecy. You helped proofread the Chinese version that I believe also went out in a few other countries. I believe Taiwan as well, which is rare to have it published in both China and Taiwan because those aren't the. I th- I think they're connected, right? I'm not too familiar with the politics, but maybe you could. Let's start by explaining that.
Yes, China and Taiwan are actually two separate countries. I mean, if you think about it, no one rules the other. So there are two separate regions and countries. And it's really rare to have a book published in both places and to be bestsellers of both places.
So I did watch your interview with Jeffrey Mislav, I believe his name is, who I've interviewed. He was the winner of Robert Bigelow's $500,000 contest on the afterlife, and he's very interested in UFOs and the paranormal. He's a psychologist, I believe. He wasn't. He believes you were a credible person, but he questioned the credibility of the book a bit. I have not read the book, so maybe you could start by explaining to us about this book, what its premise is, and why you're so passionate about it.
Yes, the book describes the personal experiences of the author, Michel Desmarquet, who was a French Australian and who says that he was taken by the beautiful race of ETs to their planet for 9 days and then came back. He was told a lot of information, things about the history of Earth, where the people came from, the white people, the black people, and the yellow people, and the Jewish people. And then he was told about many other things, such as the Bermuda Triangle was going on over there, why so many ships went missing, so many planes disappeared, and also the purposes of the Great Pyramid of Egypt, who built them, for what reason, and the statues on the Easter Island, the Moas. And he also was told about the purpose of life and stories in the Bible, and also what we should do to grow and to develop spiritually and also physically as people on Earth. So it's a very dense book, covering a wide range of topics, explaining a lot of different mysterious phenomena, which I was very interested in when I was young, like what are the ghosts, and how many like ETs are there in the universe, and things like that. A very interesting book.
So it basically covers all the secrets of life, basically the things that we all want to know, that I'm quite interested in myself, as well as a lot of fans on this channel. So let's start with the ETs. So how did this guy get connected with the ETs, and what exactly did they tell them about these extraterrestrials? Are they from this planet? Are they from other planets? Are they surveying us? What's the purpose of why they're interested in human beings?
Yes, the author was awakened at night for a reason that he didn't understand. So he woke up in the middle of the night, and then he didn't know why, but he wrote a note saying that I was about to leave for 10 days and don't worry about my life. So he put a note in his house so that his wife could see it, and then he was lifted up in the air and to the space, actually to a parallel universe first, and then to the spaceship of the ETs. And according to him, this specific kind of ET has been monitoring us and helping us throughout history. throughout ancient histories in the past. They contributed to the destruction of the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, and also they contributed to helping Moses to cross the Sea of Reeds and then going to the Mount of Sinai. They also helped to send Jesus Christ to us. What specifically interests me is that this book provides specific verifiable information that I did a lot of research on. I found this book to be credible because a lot of the details can actually be verified by research and by other people's research. The whole purpose is that we are entering a very, very interesting era, interesting times, and they're trying to help us to direct our attention to a more spiritual aspect of our lives so that we can make the right decisions in the future.
So, what did they have to say about life after death? Because it's coming out, the more research I do from credible people, that the body is just something we're inhabiting while we're in this form, and our spirit is something totally different, and our body is actually not just us; it's all of the molecules and cells. It's a group of different things that's just allowing us to live on Earth. And when we pass away, we don't really go away. We just leave the body, and the body's reabsorbed into Earth, and we're still around. But it's not exactly clear to me what happens, because we've heard stories of reincarnation, we've heard stories of ghosts, we've heard stories of heavens and hells. So what was the theory in this book behind that?
It says that we have different bodies. We have a physical body. We also have astral body. So when the physical body dies, the astral body, which is made of electrons, leaves the body and goes into another place, and that's a life review process. So it reveals all the things you did in your life, whether good or bad. You can feel how other people felt when you were doing the kind of things that you did. So it's more like a holographic experience in which you can feel everything that happened in the past. And then you'll be your own judgment. You'll be your own judge to see how you did, how you behaved. Did you care about other people sufficiently, and did you hurt other people incidentally, accidentally? And then the astral body goes into another sphere, and then gets reincarnated in another life. So this book actually talks about reincarnation. The ETs actually showed the author the previous 80 lives that the author experienced. So the author was a miner in like mining worker in Germany. He was a few times a beggar. He was a queen on another planet, and he also played other roles in his previous lives. So this book specifically mentioned that we as human beings, our souls don't die. The physical bodies die for sure, but we are here to learn how to react to life challenges, how to respond to the difficulties that you have in life, in order to grow spiritually. And I think this is very interesting because reincarnation is actually a concept believed by a lot of people in China, and also a lot of people that believe in Buddhism. And according to this book, reincarnation was actually in the teachings of Jesus Christ. And for some reason, the church councils removed the concept of reincarnation from the Bible. I think this is something that we need to consider.
Now, what does it say about animals? Because I'm always interested in that, because they're spirits too, and it seems like a lot of the times we treat animals like nothing. But could we be reincarnated into an animal or even an insect in a future life?
We actually cannot reincarnate into animals because we are different from animals. But animals do have spirits. They have three different kinds of bodies compared to us. We human beings have 9 different bodies. So one thing special about human beings that we have a small part of God, the creator of the universe. So when God wanted to experience the material world, he or it inserted a tiny portion of itself into our human bodies, but not the animal bodies. So we human beings are special, and we are part of God. So when one interesting thing about the book is that it says that religion is actually a curse on earth. When you encounter life difficulties or different experiences, you should not follow a specific religious belief. You should look inside of yourself, because you can communicate with your soul, your higher self, to find the solutions. If the solutions are appropriate for you and are helpful for your spiritual growth, you'll be provided to you when you meditate or when you sleep at night. Sometimes you have the answers given to you in the sense of dreams. And so this is why even Jesus says the kingdom of God is within you. So we should always look inside for answers.
This is a bit related to the topic, but you are probably a good person to ask about this because I've read about this recently. But Michael Collins wants to know, what do you think about the Chinese government saying it recently had indication of an attempted contact from beyond the stars? And I recall that they did put this out there and then they kind of retracted it. So it was almost like, we don't want people to know this after all.
Well, I'm sure that a lot of governments in the world have been contacted, and maybe they have been contacted for certain reasons. For the Chinese government, I know that they have secret programs to learn the ET technologies, just like the US government or the Canadian government. But I would say that it's very secretive and is not disclosed to the public. I'm not very surprised that they have learned a lot of things from the ETs. And they also do have secret programs to study the supernatural abilities of certain human beings, such as people who can remote view, who can levitate, who can uh, actually predict the future in a certain sense, and who have supernatural powers such as the qigong, the energy healing energy. Yeah.
And as far as the Bermuda Triangle, what did the book have to say about that?
The book, the author, Michel Desmarquet, didn't know anything about the parallel universe. So before he was taken onto their spaceship, they first arrived in a parallel universe for the purposes of not being seen by the people on Earth. So they were using that as a hideout place. And over there, Tao, the ET in the book, explained to the author that the missing planes or ships in the Bermuda Triangle were actually sucked into a parallel universe. And there are natural warps on Earth that are floating around in space and near the ground. Sometimes the locations are always changing, but they float around in a very, they have a very like interesting way of floating around. So when you are close to that parallel universe, the warp, you sometimes get sucked into that. And I think that actually explains a lot of people who just vanished mysteriously. I know there's a guy called David Paulides, who wrote several books titled Missing 411. So a lot of people go missing in national parks in the US every year, and in specific locations. I think that explains it. There are warps near that locations that suck people into the parallel universe.
And as far as ghosts, you mentioned they also had an explanation for ghosts in the book.
Yes. ghosts are real. They're believed by the Chinese people, by a lot of other people in the US, and also especially in Latin America too. And according to this book, ghosts are actually made of electrons. So when a person dies, the astral body leaves the physical body, and 81% of the electrons from the astral body goes to another place, gets reincarnated in the next life after 3 days. So after 3 days, this is the very interesting detail. So remember that Jesus Christ got resurrected after 3 days. I find that to be very interesting. And the other 19% of electrons remain on Earth in nature before they get recycled. So the ghosts that we see are actually the 19% of electrons that remain on Earth in nature. And because of the static force, the electrons actually resemble the person who was alive. So that's why when people see ghosts, they always look like the person who was alive at that time, but they're actually dead. And the electrons also have memories. So that's why they always go into places that they loved or hated. So they have certain memories. So there's nothing to be afraid of ghosts. When you think about them, they're just electrons.
Another question here that's Michael wants to know, you seem to believe in Jesus. Is there anything stated in the Bible that can reasonably be interpreted as meaning aliens were responsible for some of the events described in the book?
Yes, the ETs, this specific kind of ETs, has actually been watching us over the years since ancient history. And the Book of Enoch, which was removed by the church councils, the Catholic councils of the church. It actually described the experience of Enoch being taken by this group of ETs, according to the author of the book Thiaoouba Prophecy, because the descriptions of the book of Enoch, are actually very similar to what the author experienced. Michel Desmarquet mentioned in one of his lectures that he was really surprised when someone recommended him to read the Book of Enoch. And after he read it, he was convinced that Enoch was taken by the same group of ETs. And also, as I mentioned, the Sodom and Gomorrah was actually an action by this group of ETs to because of the people of the two cities did. I did some research on that. And the general conventional belief is that people at that time in the two cities practiced sodomy. And actually, that's only part of it. What happened was that according to the Jewish scriptures, the people in the two cities in the past, they treated the people who did nice things very badly. So they punished the people who helped others. So that's why God, quote unquote God, is actually this kind of ETs. They decided to destroy the two cities because they were a bad influence to the neighbors and to the city, to the people at that time. They also helped Moses to lead the Hebrews at that time to out of Egypt. They parted the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea, but the Sea of Reeds. They spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, and they also helped. After that, they also helped Mary Virgin Mary to have baby Jesus. One interesting fact is that there are two beings. One is Jesus, the other is Christ. The Jesus born out of Virgin Mary couldn't perform miracles. He went to India and died in Japan. So there's a tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan, that people can visit. And the Christ who could perform miracles is actually an ET who shape-shifted into the form, the look of Jesus, just to make people believe what he preached at that time.
Now, Michael has a lot of questions for you. He's wondering if it's blasphemous to say that all people are reincarnated after 3 days, because that was supposed to be a resurrection thing in the Bible that made Jesus Christ special and unique.
Yeah, one thing about the resurrection was that according to this book, Jesus died on the cross and resurrected after 3 days. The whole purpose of him doing that was to show people that there is life after death and there is reincarnation. For some reason, the concept of reincarnation got removed from the Bible, and it specifically listed 5 church councils that changed the original scriptures of the Bible. And if you read the book, you're going to see what the 5 church councils were. So this book is very unique. It's very different from other books because it contains very specific information. It doesn't give you a general idea that God is one or we are all one, things like that. It gives a detailed information that you can actually look up on the internet or maybe do additional research. And people don't have to believe what I say. They don't have to believe everything written in the book. I just want to show the people that there are other interpretations, and maybe they could have an open mind and to think about it from the gut, to make a lot of common sense, and to do additional research. I can give you my personal example is that my personal experience. There are some people like my brother-in-law in China who still believes that the buildings of 9/11 were they fell because the planes hit the buildings. And to me, that's just incredible that such a person who studied architecture, a famous architect in China, still believed that way. Because in my mind, the buildings fell straight down. It seems like a controlled demolition. And the planes hit the building, just a corner of the building. And but a few minutes later, the buildings fell like straight down, just like very straight, in a very strange way. I don't think the planes would cause a building to fall that way. And also, there's also the building 7, which was never hit by a plane. So this kind of common sense is something that I'm talking about that I'm trying to ask the people to maybe just to consider.
Ken says it seems to him like a demon may have written this to diminish Christianity.
Yes, you can think that way. It seems to be that way to certain people. I'm just saying that according to the book, it says that the Bible was actually distorted by the Catholic Church in later years. I'm a translator myself, and when I read the Bible in the very beginning, I had a lot of questions. Just to be very honest about myself, when I read the Bible, I didn't believe a single word of the Bible until I read the book, Thiaoouba Prophecy. It is a book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, that made me follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. Why I say that? Because the stories in the Bible were so kind of incredible that I just didn't believe it. There are so many questions in the Bible, so many questions that I had about the Bible that couldn't be answered. For example, why Jesus only performed miracles after the age of 30, but not before? If you think about it, if a person like him could perform miracles before the age of 30, there should have been records about it, but there's no such record. On the other hand, there are records about Jesus going to India, and there is a tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. And also, as a Chinese translator myself, I always wondered why Jesus called his mother a woman. I find that to be very interesting because mother and child they have a very special relationship. I don't think in any language in the world that people could confuse the word mother to a word like woman. So I think this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, explains perfectly why that's the case.
Yeah, it seems like a very controversial book. You actually give out a scholarship to help encourage people to read this book because obviously you're very passionate about it. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, the scholarship encourages people to improve the world, to make the world a better world. And one of the requirements is for the students, any students or any person, to read the book and to write a review or what they think about the book, Thiaoouba Prophecy. They don't have to believe everything the book says, but they should have independent thinking and to have independent thoughts on the things written in the book. It worth about $1,000. It's open to anyone who reads the book, no matter whether the person is American or Canadian or Chinese or Taiwanese. It really doesn't matter. I really want the world to be a better place because we are living in interesting times. As to see what's happening in around the world, and I also think that we should be ready to respond to the life challenges. As a person who studied economics and financial analysis myself, I see that the current banking issues in China are going to affect us in the US. So we should be ready for it.
Michael wants to know what's the point of heaven if everyone gets reincarnated anyway?
Um, According to the book, there are 9 different categories of planets. Earth is category 1, and the ETs that took Michel Desmarquet to their planet is category 9. So as we progress, as we grow spiritually, we move up to different levels. So if we grow spiritually enough, we can move up to category 2, category 3, or even category 4 planets. And the higher the category, the more heaven it looks like, the more it looks like a paradise. The author Michel Desmarquet was actually extremely depressed after coming back to Earth because he was shown a place, a planet that just like a heaven, a paradise to him. But he was told he didn't belong there. He didn't belong there, and his job was to write a book and to report everything that happened to him. So after he came back, he was so disappointed at everything that happened around him. People didn't believe him, not just the average person, but also people in the UFO communities. And I can testify that when I met him, he told jokes all the time, and I think that's a sign that he was trying to hide his depression, his feelings of disappointment of his life on Earth. And the picture that I took of him showed that he was looking up. He was so eager to be taken away again, and he was so interested in leaving this world again, and just to be with the people who took him.
Now, you mentioned obviously these extraterrestrials are observing us, trying to help us, I guess, through people like the author allegedly taking them up and getting them to pass the word around. But you mentioned that they talked about other races of ETs and so forth. Do they all have good intentions? Because we have heard reports that they might not all have the same intentions for humans.
Yes, that's a very interesting topic to discuss, and it's a very good question. In the book, when Michel Desmarquet, during his last day on that planet, he was shown about 200 bodies of ETs from other planets. So in the sense, this specific kind of ET is helping the other kinds of ETs too, helping indirectly, helping them to grow more spiritually, give them knowledge. And there are other kind of ETs that visited the Earth. For example, the author Michel Desmarquet actually met a kind of ET that is kind of very, very unique in his physical appearance. The book describes in detail. And they have, if they have evil intentions of invading us, and if you think about it, they have the high technologies that they can come to Earth from far distance. Technologically, they're more superior to us. If they had evil intentions, they would have invaded us a long time ago. And I would think that this kind of nice, beautiful-looking ETs are actually protecting us from such unfortunate events, if there are such unfortunate events, which I don't think there are. And I think the evil ETs are just imaginations, things that the governments around the world may be trying to create, just to create like an enemy so that we can turn our attention to the supposed imaginary enemy. I really don't think the ETs are trying to invade us.
Someone is asking, what languages do you interpret?
I interpret Chinese, which is Mandarin, the official language in China and Taiwan, and I also speak and understand Spanish.
As far as the language that these ETs use, were they speaking telepathically to the author, or were they communicating in English?
So the ETs can do both. They can speak all the languages in the world that we know of. The ET that the author encountered, named Tao, spoke to the author first in French because the author was a French Australian. French is his native language. And then when the author questioned about it, said, we're in Australia, why you are speaking to me in French? The ET changed the language into English. So you can see that the ETs are able to do a lot of different things. In addition to levitation, in addition to making themselves disappear, in addition to shape-shifting themselves to a human being, like the size of us. And they also can communicate telepathically, in which the author experienced personally too. And I think this is very interesting that the ETs are watching us and also helping us indirectly, and also telling us that we should be open-minded and to take the information that are giving us seriously.
Rec 46 wants to know, with abductions, is this the ETs slowly upgrading us? What's your theory on that?
I think I do believe that there are abductions, but not. But there are two different kinds of abductions. An abduction like this one, the author experienced, is a abduction that the ETs are trying to help us. There are other abductions in which people felt horror and fear, and I think those are probably not from the ETs. I heard from numerous sources that the military, the U.S. government, has this kind of technology to imitate abduction experience. So I think those are probably man-made. And it is also illustrated in the book that there are certain technologies that can can make people have this kind of hallucinations, and I think that's what those people experienced.
ABC wants to know your thoughts on the moon landing and Star Wars. I'm wondering. He's probably wondering if the moon landing there's some people that say it was not real. And as far as Star Wars, maybe he's talking about the government's project to. I don't think it's called Star Wars, but they have now a section of the military, Space Force, I think it's called, isn't it?
Mhm. Well, for moon landing, I believe it actually happened, but the footage was cut off because I think the astronauts actually saw a kind of ET. It's very interesting that recent evidence suggests that there are some kind of man-made structures on the far side of the moon. It actually explains it in the book. There are man-made structures on the far side of the moon. They were built by a different kind of ETs from a planet called Arimo X3. So those group of people were overpopulated on their own planet. They were trying to migrate to a different planet. So they searched in our solar system, and they first looked into Mars. At that time, according to the book, there were lives on Mars. There were human beings on Mars, but the natural resources were scarce. But the planet Mars was cooling down at that time. So we'll know something about physics. So when a planet cools down, the core cools down, it loses its magnetic field. So it loses its atmosphere. So there's no more oxygen for the people to survive. So that's how the people on Mars died off. So Mars was not an option for them. So they looked into Earth. At that time, they found Earth to be inhabited by the people, the yellow people and the black people. And they landed on a continent called Lemuria. Lemuria actually sank into the ocean about 14,000 years ago. And it was this kind of ET that built the bases on the far side of the moon as a landing base, as a transfer station for them to move to Earth. Unfortunately, this group of people also died off on Earth because the continent of Lemuria sunk so suddenly they didn't have time to escape. Only that continent sank at that time. So people on other continents, such as China or North America, they survived.
Michael wants to know if there's a movie out there related to the supernatural or sci-fi that comes close to resembling what's described in the book.
Well, I haven't found a good film or movie that covers everything that the book talks about. But there are certain films that cover certain topics, specific topics that this book mentioned. I think if you look into like Missing 411, the film by David Paulides, you're going to see there's strange disappearances in national parks in the U.S. If you look into other films by, I think, I cannot remember, like by Dr. Stephen Greer, you can learn something about it. You can also watch certain films by other, like I think Mr. Gamble. You can learn something about spirituality and what's happening around the world. But not a single film covers everything the book talks about because it's a very dense book. It covers a lot of different topics.
Now, one topic you mentioned earlier at the beginning of this interview was the pyramids, which a couple of years ago, I think about 2 years ago now, Elon Musk, who is in charge of colonizing Mars, he did put out a tweet that the aliens actually built the pyramids, and the Egyptian tourism department was not too pleased with that. Although I would say if anyone would know who built the pyramids or if there's anything going on up there, it would be a guy like Elon Musk, who has all these satellites and would be privy to confidential information because of the projects he's involved with. But I'm wondering what the book said about that, and what do you think a guy like Elon Musk actually knows about what's going on?
Well, I think his guess is reasonable, but according to this book, the ETs told the author that the Great Pyramid of Egypt was actually built by a person from Atlantis called Thoth, Thoth. So he was a very wise man and a learned person, and he knew the technologies of anti-gravitation technologies, and also he knew how to cut huge stones in such a precise manner. They used ultrasonic vibrational systems. The Great Pyramid of Egypt was built 17,000 years ago, according to the book, and it was actually used as an energy center because it absorbs the cosmic forces, the cosmic energy. The pharaohs, the pharaoh Cleops, didn't use the Great Pyramid as a tomb, but he used the pyramid correctly to communicate with the people on other planets. The other function of the Great Pyramid was to make rain with certain metal alloys. It was able to generate a certain form of energy, in turn making Egypt a very fertile land to grow crops, because they can call the rain to fall at any time they wished.
Ken would like to know if you think the Mandela effect and missing 411 could be caused by aliens bending time and space with gravitational propulsion systems.
This book, the parallel universe theory, explains some of the cases described in the missing 411 books, but not all the cases. And I think this book describes that in a parallel universe, the time stops. So when a person goes into a parallel universe, he or she wouldn't feel any pain, and wouldn't feel that the time stopped. So I think this explains a lot of things like the Bigfoot, because the author actually saw the savages, the wild men in the parallel universe, who couldn't really speak the modern language, but spoke in a way that more resembled like gorillas. And I think that could be the Bigfoots that actually knew how to get out of the parallel universe to our world and back and forth. So I think that's just my personal guess.
And as far as Atlantis, what did the book have to say about Atlantis?
Okay, the book describes Atlantis as a continent between the United States and Africa. So it was colonized by the people from Lemuria. So the Lemurians actually had great technologies to colonize the people on Atlantis. And so there's one interesting detail that I like to mention. I remember vaguely, like years ago, I read a book or an article describing a person's encounter with a ET spaceship. And that person saw that on the ET spaceship, there were some Greek letters. According to this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, the people on Atlantis spoke a language that's very similar to, they used a language very similar to Greek language. and they also had anti-gravitational technologies, and they were able to like to fly using this kind of flying saucers, which was described as like fire or chariots of fire in ancient scriptures. So I think this is a very interesting like a detail that I'd like to share with you.
Yes, because of course there's a whole book on that I think started the whole ancient aliens theory, the chariots of the gods, right? That whole theory of the connection with the supernatural.
Yes, and unfortunately, the continent of Atlantis also sank, and a lot of the technologies got lost. However, according to the ETs of this book, we do have a lot of the clean energy technologies that are being suppressed by major corporations like the oil companies, and they're encouraging us to look into that and to commercialize such technologies, because they do see that environmental pollution is something that we should take care of.
So if people want to find this book, can they just find it on Amazon? Where could
Yes,
they buy it if they want to look into?
they can just search on the internet or look it up on Amazon. On Amazon, this book is shown a different cover, but it's the same book, so people don't need to worry about it.
Very good. Well, we appreciate you coming on. My fans love seeing my dog, so my dog will say hi. I'm sure you could probably hear her in the background at various times. But is there anything you would like to say of where people can follow you to get updates from you on social media and stuff?
I have my website, chinasona.org /Thiaoouba, and people can find a lot of information that's due to my research, and I disclose certain information that's not written in the book, that's told by the author personally to me. And I think we should, when we encounter life difficulties or things in life, we should look into ourselves and not follow a specific group, and not to rely on others. Certainly not to rely on the ETs, because according to the ETs, they can guide us, but they never provide direct solution to us. Just like a parent to a child, if a parent wants to help the child, the parent would help the child to understand the problem and to navigate in order to reach a conclusion by the child itself, but not to provide the meal on our plate. So we should learn how to help ourselves, and not to rely on outside people like the ETs.
Now, there have been reports from military officials about ETs playing around with nuclear silos and rendering them abled and disabled with nothing anyone can do. Uh, while some of these craft are hovering over these silos, what do you think those type of purposes are? Just to show that flex a muscle and make us fear them a little bit, or to show us that they will actually disable these if we ever decide to fire them? Or what do you think they're doing?
I think they're warning us that the nuclear weapons are dangerous. They provided assistance to us throughout history when necessary, only when it is absolutely necessary. So I think they're warning us not to play fire. And I think they're doing this just to help us in a more direct way.
I see. Well, this has been very interesting. Rec 46 wants to know your thoughts on Area 51. I think now that Area 51 has kind of been exposed, there's probably a new area where they do these tests, I would imagine.
There are different kinds of ETs, and Area 51, according to the information I received, correct me if I'm wrong, the government is collaborating with the gray ETs. According to this book, the gray ETs also come from category 1 planet. So they are not as evolved spiritually as other kinds of ETs. They do have technologies to come to us. They're actually observing us as well. They did give a lot of people implants, or put a lot of implants on people, but not as many as other people's claimed. The ETs of this book told the author, Michel Desmarquet, telepathically that there are only about 150 people who got implants from the Greys. The purpose of the implants is to observe us in a more scientific way, just to see how we respond to our immune system, the decrease of our immune system, because since the 1940s, our immune system has been decreasing year by year, and the Greys also have the same problem. So they're trying to see how we respond to the situation. And in other words, the Greys are a dying species. So this is something that the author received.
I've heard that overall ETs live a lot longer than humans. Some of them could live up to 700 years, I heard.
Yes, it is true. This type of ET, the Thiaoubans, they can live forever. They can regenerate their bodies at will. So they look at the same age. Everyone looks at the same age, like 30s something. They're very beautiful, blonde, tall, and they have enviable breasts. And also they have they're hermaphrodites, by the way, and they always look very happy, like as if they're receiving good news all the time. So they can revive the dead. They can perform all the miracles that Jesus could perform, or Jesus performed on earth. So they actually can live forever. So this is the category 9 planet.
Yeah, so they could technically mate with humans then, I guess, or reproduce.
I really don't know about that, because they're hermaphrodites.
I'm sorry, I'm not that smart. What's a hermaphrodite? I don't even know. So, I've heard the word, but
hermaphrodite is like a body that has both male and female features. Like they would have breasts and they would have penises, like male genital organs, and that's how they are.
Okay, interesting. Learning lots off of this interview. Rec would like to know if you have any insight into Roswell, the famous crash in New Mexico.
Yeah, I think that crash is actually caused by some of the magnetic interferences of some of the military installations. And the ETs that got crashed were the Greys. And they had technologies, but they were not spiritually advanced enough to give us guidance. They can cooperate with the government, but they couldn't provide specific verifiable information like this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, does. So I think to be more practical, to handle well our real life challenges, and to see how this world is going, I strongly encourage people to read this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy. You don't have to buy it. You can just read it online. If you look hard enough, you can find a free copy online. I'm not selling the book, but I think the messages contained in the book are very important.
A lot of people, including myself, now listen to audiobooks a lot. Is it available on Audible or anything yet?
Not yet. I'm trying to find someone who can read the book. We are very specific about the female voice. It has to be divine and angelic and calm and peaceful. This is a requirement by the copyright holder of the book. I still haven't encountered a female voiceover specialist to do it yet.
Is the author still alive? I know you met him, or is he passed away now?
He passed away about 4 years ago, 3 months after I met him the second time. Yeah, unfortunately, but he was very happy. I think we don't have to be sorrowful when a person passes away. The book describes the event in which the king of Lemuria passed away. People were celebrating the death of the king because they knew that the king would go to a higher level of planet or to progress further in his life. It was a happy thing that we're celebrating because the king did everything correctly in his life. He was a person with justice, a person who helped the people. I think when our relatives pass away, we should know that there is life after death, and the soul or the spirit or the astral body of the person who passed away will move on and reincarnate in the future. And I think there's nothing to be sorrowful about.
And what is it about the author that made you find this story so credible? Just the research that you've done, collaborating it, or did you just immediately have this connection with the book that in your heart you felt it was legitimate when you first read it?
The first time I read a book, halfway through the book, I thought, oh, this is just another UFO contactee book, just another regular book. But when I read the chapter on who is Christ, it really answered all my questions about the Bible. I really believe that it explains perfectly the stories in the Bible regarding Jesus Christ, regarding Moses. It made perfect sense to me. And it made me believe that everything this book says is true, is real. When I read the postscript of the book, it says, there are certain incredible things that I'm not allowed to write in the book because we are far from understanding them. I thought at that time, so many things written in this book have been so incredible to me. What's more incredible? That we are far from understanding them. I'm a very curious person, so I wanted to find out more about it. I was determined to ask the author about it. So I did the research online. I was trying to find out where he lived at that time. I found there are certain tourists who traveled to a southern island in Vietnam who actually met the author and took photos of him and his bungalow, but they never revealed his exact address. So I took the chance. I flew from Los Angeles to Vietnam onto that island, and I showed the taxi driver a photo of the bungalow that the tourist took and asked him to take me there. On the second try, the taxi driver found the right location. So I had a lot of interactions with Michel Desmarquet, the author, and he was really annoyed and upset in the very beginning because he was a very private person. He didn't want people to find him because of the book. And he asked him a lot of questions. He asked me to read the book again because he said, everything you asked can be found in the book. The day before I left him, he showed me a contract signed by him and a publisher in China. He said, Samuel, could you please help me to follow up with this publisher because they paid me $2,000 for the copyright fee, but they never got back to me on what happened to the book again. Please contact them and see what happened. So I contacted the publisher in China. I asked them if they finally got the book published. And they said no, because they were they were very afraid of the censorship in China. They were afraid of losing their jobs because the book talks about religion, the Christian religion. And, in China, it is a prohibited topic. So I got back to Michel Desmarquet, and he said, Samuel, how about this? Either you try to persuade this publisher to publish the book in China, or you find other publishers in China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, or Singapore to get this book published. And I said, okay, I will try. So I did finally, and I got the books published in both China and Taiwan. And he sent me another email saying that, Samuel, I'm so surprised that Tao, the ET, sent me a telepathic message. I don't know how she knew about it, but she was very happy about you having getting this book published in China. And she allowed me to reveal the one thing that I was not allowed to write in the book. But you have to come to me personally. I had to tell you in person. And this is the whole reason that I visited him the second time.
I see. Very interesting. And the last fan question for today, Rec wants to know your thoughts on the whole Bob Lazar story.
I believe he is credible. I believe what he said is true. There are anti-gravitational technologies that are being used in the military, but not made public yet.
Very interesting. Well, I'll let you close this off with whatever you want to say, but thanks again. It's been interesting. We've learned some things today, and I appreciate you coming on.
I would really encourage people to do your own research and to think independently. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe everything the book says, but at least find the book and read it. You don't even have to pay. You don't even have to pay for this book. You can find a free copy online, and hopefully you can find a free copy. And I encourage you or your children to apply for the scholarship, because so far only 12 people applied each year.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications buttons so you don't miss any of my latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on Facebook at the Hannibal